There is a moment that happens in every recession that nobody ever sees coming, even though it has happened in exactly the same way in every economic downturn in modern American history. It is not the moment the stock market crashes. It is not the moment the Federal Reserve announces an emergency rate cut. It is not the moment the headlines start using the word recession officially. It is a much quieter moment. It is the moment a perfectly employed, financially responsible, hardworking American opens their email on a Tuesday morning and finds a calendar invite from HR titled, "Important Discussion Scheduled for 9 o'clock." And in the 45 minutes between reading that calendar invite and sitting down in that meeting, their entire understanding of their financial security is dismantled in real time. By 10 o'clock, they are no longer employed. By 11 o'clock, they are doing the math on how long their savings will last. By noon, they are realizing the math does not work the way they thought it would. And by the end of that week, they are understanding for the first time with complete clarity that everything they were told about financial security, work hard, save responsibly, trust your employer, trust the system, was built on an assumption of continuous employment that the recession just destroyed in a single Tuesday morning calendar invite. This is not a rare story. This is the story of millions of Americans in every recession. And the reason it keeps happening to people who did everything right is not bad luck. It is a structural vulnerability that is entirely predictable, entirely understandable, and entirely preventable for anyone who understands what is actually coming and acts before it arrives. That is what this video is about. What happens to employment during recessions, why it happens so fast and so broadly, and what you can do right now today before the next recession fully arrives to make sure that Tuesday morning calendar invite, if it comes, finds you in a position of strength rather than desperation. Let us start with the question that almost nobody asks clearly enough. Why does unemployment rise so dramatically during recessions? Not gradually. Not in proportion to whatever economic problem triggered the recession, but explosively, going from 4% to 8, 9, 10% in a matter of months, affecting millions of people across multiple industries simultaneously. The answer begins with something called the velocity of spending. An economy does not run on production. It runs on spending. Every dollar spent in an economy is revenue for someone. That revenue pays wages. Those wages become spending. That spending becomes revenue for someone else. The cycle feeds itself continuously, each rotation generating economic activity that supports employment across every sector simultaneously. When something disrupts that cycle, when consumers pull back on spending for any reason, whether job insecurity, falling asset prices, tightening credit, or simple fear of what is coming, the effect is not contained to the sector where the disruption began. It is spread. Every business whose revenue depends on consumer spending starts to feel the reduction, and businesses facing falling revenue with fixed costs that do not automatically fall begin making the same calculations simultaneously. That calculation is simple and brutal. Revenue is falling. Costs are not. The gap between them is the margin. And when the margin compresses to the point where continuing at current operating costs means burning through cash reserves until the business fails, companies cut. The largest and most flexible cost in almost every business is labor. Not because employers want to eliminate jobs, but because in a world of falling revenue and fixed costs, labor is the expense that can be reduced fast enough to matter. This is the first block of the unemployment mechanism. A spending disruption creates a revenue disruption. A revenue disruption creates a margin compression. A margin compression creates layoffs. And the layoffs creates another spending disruption, because the people who just lost their jobs immediately reduce their spending to survival levels, which creates another revenue disruption, which creates another round of layoff. This is the literal mathematical mechanism by which recessions spread unemployment from one sector across the entire economy. Each cycle of the feedback loop is larger than the last. The dominoes fall faster and faster, and by the time most people realize a recession is serious, by the time the headlines are unambiguous and the data is confirmed, the mechanism has already been running for months, and unemployment is on its way to 8 or 9 or 10%. Now, here is the part that makes this mechanism specifically dangerous for people who believe their job is secure because their company is doing well and their performance reviews are strong. The recession unemployment mechanism does not primarily eliminate bad employees at struggling companies. It eliminates good employees at good companies because of a dynamic that most workers never think about until they experience it personally. When a recession starts and revenue begins to fall, most companies do not immediately begin layoffs. They wait. They hope the slowdown is temporary. They cut discretionary spending, first travel, conferences, marketing, office expenses before they touch head. They freeze hiring. They ask people to do more with less. This phase can last 3 to 6 months, during which the company appears to be managing the recession without significant job losses. But during this phase, something is happening that is invisible to most employees. Leadership is doing a different kind of math. They are calculating how long their current cash reserves and revenue trajectory can sustain. The current headcount before the business itself is at risk, and they're identifying very quietly which roles are directly connected to revenue generation or core operational necessity, and which roles, however valuable under normal conditions, are not essential to survival during an extended downturn. When the decision is finally made to cut, and it is almost always made faster and more decisively than employees expect, it is not made role by role based on performance. It is made structurally, based on which functions the company can operate without for an extended period. Entire departments get eliminated. Entire layers of management disappear. The people in those roles are not cut because they performed poorly. They are cut because the role itself became non-essential in a survival context. Understanding this distinction between performance-based job security and structural job security is one of the most important pieces of career intelligence anyone can have going into a recession. The question is not, am I performing well? The question is whether my role would be considered essential or non-essential in a survival context. And if the honest answer is non-essential, the time to address that is before the recession forces the company's hand. There is a third layer to the unemployment mechanism that explains why recessions create unemployment that lasts far longer than the recession itself. It is what economists call the scarring effect, and understanding it is critical to understanding why the timing of your preparation matters so much. When a recession causes widespread unemployment across multiple industries simultaneously, companies that are surviving are not in growth mode. They are in survival mode. They are not looking to hire. They are looking to retain the people they kept and get maximum productivity from a reduced workforce. The hiring that does happen is highly selective, highly competitive, and almost always focused on the most immediately revenue-generating roles. The data on recessionary unemployment duration is consistent and sobering. During the 2008 recession, the average duration of unemployment peaked at over 40 weeks, 10 months. During COVID, millions of Americans were unemployed for 6 months or more, even as the official recovery was underway. The financial planning implication is direct and specific. If your emergency fund is built around a 3 to 6 month job search timeline, it was not built for recessionary unemployment. It was built for a job loss event that happens when the overall economy is healthy. During a recession, that assumption is wrong in a way that can be catastrophically expensive. Now, the action plan. 5 specific actions that address each of these vulnerabilities and that need to happen before the recession forces your hand. The first action is the career audit. It asks for specific questions about your current professional situation that most people have never asked themselves clearly. First, is your role revenue generating, cost reducing, or operationally essential to your company's core business? These are the 3 categories of roles that survive recessions. Sales roles that directly generate revenue, finance and operations roles that manage costs and keep essential functions running, technical roles directly involved in the core product or service the company cannot function without. If your honest assessment is that your role falls outside these 3 categories, you are in a structurally more vulnerable position than your performance reviews suggest. Second, how much of your company's revenue comes from discretionary spending? Companies serving discretionary markets, advertising, events, luxury goods, entertainment, non-essential retail, hospitality see revenue fall fastest and most severely during recessions. If your company's revenue depends heavily on discretionary spending, the recession risk to your employment is amplified by the business model itself. Third, how concentrated is your company's revenue? A company with heavy dependence on 2 or 3 large clients is dramatically more vulnerable to a recessionary revenue shock than a company with hundreds of clients and no single point of failure. Fourth, are your skills portable in the current job market? The person with highly portable skills who loses their job during a recession can compete for positions across a wide range of opportunities. The person whose skills are highly specific to one company or one industry faces a much more constrained market when displaced. The honest answers to these 4 questions tell you how much recessional risk your current career situation carries. And that assessment determines the urgency of everything else. The second action is building the recession runway. Not 3 months of expenses, not 6 months of lifestyle expenses, 12 months of true essential expenses, the minimum monthly cost of keeping your housing, utilities, basic food, insurance, and minimum debt payments intact, held in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5% specifically sized for a job search that could take 6 to 12 months in a recessionary labor market. The calculation of your true essential expenses versus your current lifestyle expenses is worth doing now because the number is almost always significantly lower than people expect. Strip out everything that is not genuinely non-negotiable, every subscription, every dining expense, every discretionary purchase. And what remains is your true essential monthly cost. Multiply that by 12. That is your recession runway target. For most American households, true essential monthly expenses are between 40 and 60% of current monthly spending, which means the recession runway is often more achievable to build than the lifestyle expense number would suggest. And holding it in a high-yield savings account, currently paying 4 to 5%, means the runway is growing rather than eroding while you build it. The third action is income architecture. Building a secondary income stream that is structurally independent of your primary employer before the recession eliminates the primary income. The secondary income stream that provides the most recession protection is the one that serves markets that hold up during recessions. Freelance work in essential business functions, accounting, legal support, technical writing, software development. Data analysis tends to hold up better than freelance work in discretionary markets. Consulting in areas where your expertise directly helps other businesses survive or reduce costs tends to be more resilient than consulting, focused on growth and expansion. The secondary income stream you build during economic expansion should be evaluated not just for its current earning potential, but for its recession resilience. Even $1,000 to $2,000 per month from a secondary income source dramatically changes how long your recession runway needs to last and how much pressure you face to accept the wrong position during a job search. The fourth action is the skill investment. The skills that provide the most durable career protection in an environment of both cyclical recessions and structural AI disruption are the ones that are simultaneously difficult to automate and highly valuable to businesses under financial stress. Complex problem solving that requires genuine contextual judgment. Client relationship management that requires trust and human connection. Leadership and decision-making under uncertainty. Domain expertise deep enough to be genuinely differentiated from what AI tools can replicate. Investing time and money in developing these skills right now through courses, certifications, mentorship, and deliberate professional development is not optional preparation for a distant future. It is urgent preparation for a labor market that is already being restructured in ways that disproportionately affect people who have not started that investment. The fifth action is the debt floor reduction. Your monthly debt obligations are a clock. Every month that clock runs, your recession runway shrinks by the full amount of those obligations, regardless of whether you are employed or not. The higher your monthly debt obligations, the faster the clock runs, and the more pressure you face to accept any available employment rather than the right employment during a job search. This pressure monthly obligations eaten through savings at a fixed rate, while the job search extends beyond the expected timeline, is the mechanism that drives people to take wrong positions during recessions, to accept roles below their skill level because the clock is running out, and those wrong positions have career consequences that compound over time. Lower starting salary becomes the anchor for the next negotiation. Less challenging work means skills development slows. Professional momentum erodes. Every dollar of consumer debt you eliminate before the recession reduces the monthly clock speed. Every minimum payment that disappears from your fixed monthly obligations gives you more time to find the right position rather than the desperate one. And the difference between finding the right position and the desperate one, compounded across a career, can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime earnings. The recession is coming. Not as a prediction about next month or next year, as a statement about the mathematical certainty of economic cycles that have operated with remarkable regularity throughout modern financial history. The specific timing is unknowable. The mechanism is not. The impact on employment is not. The structural vulnerabilities that determine who gets destroyed and who comes through intact are not. You now understand the velocity of spending mechanism that turns economic disruptions into explosive unemployment. You understand the difference between performance-based job security and structural job security, and why your performance reviews tell you almost nothing about your recession vulnerability. You understand the scarring effect that makes recessionary unemployment last far longer than normal job loss, and why the standard emergency fund advice was not built for that reality. And you have 5 specific actions that address each of these vulnerabilities: the career audit, the recession runway, the income architecture, the skill investment, the debt floor reduction. None of these actions require extraordinary resources. All of them require time, which is exactly the resource that disappears when the Tuesday morning calendar invite appears. The time to act is now. Before the mechanism is fully in motion, before the job market tightens, before the runway needs to be used rather than built. The next recession will find millions of Americans unprepared, not because they did not care about their financial security, but because they were never told clearly enough, early enough, what was actually coming and what to actually do about it. Now you have been told. If this video gave you the clearest picture you have ever had of why recessions destroy employment and what to do before they do, hit that like button and subscribe. We post every week with financial content that goes this deep on the real mechanisms that determine financial outcomes. Drop a comment below. Which of the 5 actions are you going to take first? I read every single one. See ya in the next one.